Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to chat with you guys a little bit about pause benching. It seems like, when you bring this up, it's such a controversial topic, and everyone's like, well, I'm not a power lifter, so I don't need to pause my bench press. I'm like, well, why are you benching? We come over to the point of people are bouncing it off their chests and stuff while they say this, and my point to that is, well, you clearly aren't chasing a big chest either. Because if you were chasing hypertrophy in your chest, you would want to make the lift more difficult in the lengthened position. You'd be caring about things like stimulus to fatigue, and you would really fucking care about that lengthened position, which is at the very bottom of the bench press. Why? Because study after study, we can just put a little infinity behind that, shows that the lengthened position is generally where we get the best hypertrophy. It's usually close to the most important part of an exercise. In some cases, some exercises and muscles, it's where pretty much all the growth occurred. Not exclusively, but if in a few cases, yes. So we come over to the point about pausing on the chest. That's where the pectoral's in the lengthened position. Okay. If you pause, you have no inertia because you're not able to bounce it off the chest. Now, on dumbbells, it's different. We can make the case for the stretch reflex on a dumbbell because you get to the bottom, it's in a stretch position, and you can immediately reverse it. There's no way to bounce it. Okay, the pecs have to do the work to get it moving. That's one reason some people feel that dumbbells are better for their chest. Okay, the people who generally say, I don't know, I just feel like I get a lot more chest stimulation out of dumbbells, a lot more than the barbell. They considered it's because you're not able to bounce it off your chest. So even if you reverse it quickly, you just get a stretch reflex. Well, that's fantastic for hypertrophy. Okay, that's fantastic for hypertrophy. Okay, but if you come to at least just a very brief stop with the barbell, you can't bounce it, because that's what we're trying to avoid. That's one reason I tell people to pause, and I do it a lot, even on my really high rep sets. As I get later into the sets, I start doing longer pauses instead of just a very, very brief one. Even if I do a little bit of touch and go, it's exactly for that reason. As we get fatigued, we're making sure that the chest has to do most of the work to get the weight started. Because again, it's at the lengthened position. Right, when we're touching the chest is where the pectoral is the most stretched that it's going to get on the exercise. Stretch is again put into that lengthened position. That's really where the magic happens for building size. Hey, it's where the magic happens. If anything, we could make the case on the other end in some cases for building certain types of strength while doing touch and go on the bench. Okay, because like let's say you struggle more with lockout. Let's say you struggle more with triceps. All right, doing heavy touch and go work with the bench, particularly if we bring the grip in just a little bit, it's a great way to build more triceps. It's a great way to build more lockout strength if that's where you suck. For a lot of us, though, we're slow off the chest, particularly when the grip is a little wider. So in that case, we're getting better strength by pausing. But when it comes to hypertrophy, removing that bounce, removing the ability to bounce, because again, a lot of people's touch and go, their ego gets to them very, very quickly. And before long, that touch and go starts turning into a bounce. And there's a very fine line there. Okay, and I'm not saying you can't maximize development with a touch and go on the bench. Because if we can do it with a dumbbell, we can technically pull it off with the barbell. Okay, we can. But there's a fine line between checking our ego and using a little bit of bounce, even just a small amount. Even if we do just a small amount, we're shifting it into more of a tricep and delt exercise. We are de-emphasizing the pectorals a little if we do that. So for the people who are really chasing chest development, not only should you be pausing, or if you're touch and go, they need to be very, 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 very light touch and goes with your ego in check. and with your wrists stacked the most so that we get a deep stretch at the bottom, right? In fact, if we go too wide or too narrow, we lose a little range of motion at the bottom. So we lose a little bit of pec activation in favor of a little more tricep, right? Triceps are then, sometimes doing a little more work, or front delts if we go real wide, okay? But if you want a chest, you want to be close to 90 degrees at the bottom with your forearm. You want to have either a very, very light touch and go, and I mean very light, to where there's zero bounce, or you want to pause, even just a brief pause. It doesn't have to be the long pauses we do for some power training, right? Just that very, very brief pause, 1/4 of a second. You just got to come to a stop. All right, that's going to give you the best chest development. But the longer pauses are really going to carry over to your maxes big time, especially with your heavier work. All right, anything 5 reps or less, 1 second pause, that's going to carry over extremely well to a competition bench. But the other, if we're chasing hypertrophy, it becomes important, to have just a very brief pause can be so useful just for checking your ego, making sure the chest is doing the work. All right, another reason, we come back over to stimulus fatigue. Okay, your 10 rep max with a pause is going to be lighter than your 10 rep max touch and go. Okay, so let's say your goal is to do 10 rep sets. Say your goal is to do 10 rep sets. If you can lift more with the touch and go, and most people can, you're cheating just a little bit, at least on some of the reps. The pecs aren't working as hard, so it's taking them longer to get fatigued. You see what I'm saying here? They can handle either more reps with the same weight, or they can handle heavier weight with the same reps because they're not working as hard. Okay? But here's the thing. We come over if you're trying to do 10s and then you're having to put 10 or 20 pounds more on the bar. We're creating more fatigue for the same amount of muscle growth. More fatigue means what? We need more recovery time. It's more difficult to recovery. All right? Our goal should usually be to get the stimulus of muscle growth as high as we can while keeping the fatigue as reasonable as possible so that we recover faster. Because if we're wasting recovery time, a lot of times if we delay recovery too long with too much work, too much fatigue really, doesn't always have to be from the work. With too much fatigue, we're inhibiting muscle growth a little bit also. Okay? By pausing, we can keep the stimulus the same while bringing the fatigue down just a little bit. We recover just a little faster. At the end of the day, I always tell people it's not the stimulus in the gym. It's not what you do in the gym that causes growth. It's what you recover from in an appropriate amount of time that causes the muscle growth, right? It's only stimulus that you can recover from quickly enough causes muscle growth. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.